Welcome back. It's been a bit. Today we're going to be talking exclusively about mainline towns. Specifically, we're going to be comparing Wayne, Berwyn, and Devon, and what we're going to be comparing them on is resale liquidity. So a lot of people, when they think about resale, it's just pure value, what's going to have the best long-term appreciation. Resale liquidity is a little more nuanced than that. It does include long-term appreciation gains. Beyond that, it also includes the ability to sell quickly, the ability to maintain leverage during negotiations, whether that's at the offer stage, when inspections come about, how you're handling appraisals, what homes continue to appraise well over time. So all of these things come into play when talking about resale liquidity. So Wayne, Berwyn, Devon, a lot of people in their minds, I think, would include these as luxury suburbs. For the Philly suburbs, I think most people think of that generally when they think of the main line, and they kind of all get lumped in together. Maybe you think about the Wayne, Devon, Berwyn being a little more spacious. You get a little more land, the properties are a little bigger, a little more privacy from neighbors. Wayne's kind of a transition between the more downtown portions of the main line, so Bryn Mawr, Haverford, Ardmore, and not fully as suburban as pockets of Chester County get. So we're kind of in that middle ground. Prices stay consistently high here, and that's for a few reasons. One is the town name premium. You have unbelievable schools here. So you're dealing with Radnor, you're dealing with portions of the Conestoga Tredyffrin School District, and you're also getting good commute access. The Paoli Thorndale line runs through these. That's something they all share in common. There are a lot of pros to living in these three towns, and for that reason, they maintain their value really well. That's why resale liquidity can be a good differentiator if you're looking to make a slightly more informed decision than just looking at long-term resale value. So we're going to talk about these three towns. We're going to talk about the main line generally at times. We'll talk about the Philly suburbs generally at times, and that includes the New Jersey side. I am licensed in New Jersey as well. So we're going to talk about how they behave differently, some similarities between them, but I'll quickly walk through everything we'll look at. So we'll talk about, I touched on it a bit, but just what resale liquidity means specifically on the main line, why Wayne, Devon, Berwyn stay in demand, which I discussed at a very high level. We'll talk about Wayne specifically, then we'll move to Devon, then Berwyn, and then we'll talk about the factors that are the biggest differentiators in resale liquidity between each town. And then we'll talk about the different buyer profiles they fit. So one, the way I describe it might sound better generally, but it might not be the best for you or someone that you know who's looking to sell their home or buy a home in these areas. So you need to understand what you specifically are looking for, and then you'll have a better sense of where you might slot into these three towns. And then, as always, we'll do final takeaways. Gonna do the YouTube thing. Please like, follow, subscribe, do all this stuff. On Instagram, I provide a lot of guides if you just DM me, so that's a fun thing to go check out if you want a little insight onto my theories on buying a home, selling a home, how to handle appraisals, how to set up for open houses, how to deal with closing. I have a guide for everything. It's super fun. I have a guide for everything. Okay, so let's talk about what resale liquidity means on the main line. So resale liquidity is essentially the market's ability to absorb your home quickly and at a strong price with minimal friction. And minimal friction in my mind when talking about resale liquidity is you're going to have more of the leverage than you might otherwise in terms of inspections, in terms of negotiations. Usually appraisals get covered in these areas. So what this means for you long term, if maybe this isn't the final house you're ever going to live in. It means if you do look to sell in the future, you're going to have shorter days on market, which is big for a number of reasons. You're going to have fewer price reductions in these areas, which is big to know if you're buying or selling. You're going to have higher list to sale ratios. That means you're likely at or above asking price. And most importantly, in my mind at least, you're going to have a really deep buyer pool. A lot of people want to move into these areas, not only if they're maybe relocating from New York or DC for a lifestyle change, if they're moving out of Philly, this is a very desirable pocket, but this is also a pocket of the Philly suburbs that people look to move up into. Maybe you were a little closer at first when you were in your 20s, 30s, because you did want that access to downtown Philly, but you wanted a little bit more suburban feel. Maybe you've settled down now. Maybe you just have 8 dogs now. Maybe you wanted more of a farm life. You can still get that on the main line, which I think people don't always think about, but these areas do have pockets of that. And so this does become a very highly desirable move up area. Sorry, I'm adjusting my feet. My dog is asleep under me right now. So resale liquidity depends on 4 major factors: demand, scarcity, affordability in the local buyer pool, and confidence. And that's buyer confidence in the home they're moving into. So confidence is driven by schools, their routine. And by routine, I mean mostly what can they access on a day-to-day basis and what their commute is like, and the perception that their town holds value over time. Obviously, all 3 of these towns have that. For decades, they have been a prime location for people moving to the Philly suburbs, moving into the Philly suburbs. And perception is a big thing on the main line. It just is, whether you believe in that or not. That is something that other people absolutely do believe in, and something you're going to have to compete with if you're looking to move into these pockets or take advantage of if you're selling in these pockets. So, why do these 3 towns, Wayne, Devon, Berwyn, stay in demand? So all 3 have a shared combination of access, and that's rail optionality. So the SEPTA, the Paoli Thorndale line, goes right through all of these, so very easy for professionals to get into Philly or access other train routes to get to other major urban centers. Yeah. Second, you have a strong driving commute ecosystem. All of these towns have relatively easy access to 76 and to 202. I grew up, well, both when I was in PA and in Delaware, right off of 202. It's helpful to be on. Also, if you do go down into Delaware, the original Taco Bell that was on 202 is still there. Amazing place. And then you also have very easy access to King of Prussia. And when people think of King of Prussia, obviously they think of the mall. It's a great mall. It's where I used to do all my Christmas shopping when I was little and going with my parents. But there's a big employment hub in the Philly suburbs. Besides downtown Philly, you could argue it might be the biggest employment hub in the Philadelphia suburbs until you get out a little further. But then they're kind of their own employment hubs. So having this very close, you have some finance shops there. You have a lot of healthcare professionals in the King of Prussia area. So you're going to be competing with these people who, I think in my mind, they have like classic city jobs, but are working and living in the suburbs. So it brings up kind of the floor for these 3 towns. And the third is school district confidence, which I touched on earlier. You have the Tredyffrin Easttown and Radnor in these towns. These are some of the best schools in obviously the Philly suburbs, but really in the state, in the country. So people are going to be consistently fighting to be in these school districts. Beyond that, you have lifestyle. So in Wayne, you have Lancaster Avenue. I love Wayne. Just made an Instagram video about how I think it's my favorite Philly suburban town. If you haven't gone, go to Blue Elephant. The food is incredible. Really cool classic movie theater there, which they also have in Phoenixville, the Colonial. Very fun stuff. But you're always going to have to verify your school assignment based on your street, because it does change street to street. So some people could be paying what they think is a valid premium to get into a certain school district if that's what you're looking for. And when I say highly rated, I mean truly rated, like US News ratings. I have no value judgments on what you think is the right or wrong school district for you and your family. That's for you to decide. I'll show you homes everywhere. Equal opportunity, baby. But for real. in Devon, you have the classic mainline feel getting back. Wayne took me off course. And then Berwyn, you have a balance of convenience and neighborhood character. So you absolutely can get that town feel, that easy access to a town if you want, but you can also get a little more of a rural vibe. I know I grew up next to farms my whole life. My wife grew up very close to farms. We wanted the ability for our kids to run around, for the dogs to have a big place to run. So we were certainly looking for more of that when we moved up here from DC, back here from DC. So let's talk about Wayne specifically. This is certainly, out of these three, the most town-centered premium you're going to have. If you look at the Wayne real estate market right now, you'll notice homes within walking distance of that town center of Lancaster Ave go for much more, like a significant amount more than just like a 5 to 10 minute drive outside of it. So that's something to keep in mind when looking at Wayne. Out of these three, I would say Wayne has the strongest resale liquidity if you look at buyer depth and demand consistency. And I think that's because of the downtown, because a lot of the other things they're going to share. So understanding that the closer you are to that downtown, the more resale liquidity you're going to have, but you have to balance that out with you're going to have elevated prices there because people instinctively understand that. So let's talk about the Wayne buyer pool so that you either know what you're competing against or who's going to be shopping for your home. Shopping for home always cracks me up. So the Wayne buyer pool is typically a mix of move-up families. Maybe they're in Wayne, but in a townhome right now. They're looking for a home. Maybe they were a little closer to the city or in the city, and they're trying to move up in lifestyle. And then you're also going to get relocators. I know my wife and I, when we were moving up from DC, we looked at Wayne aggressively. We really liked it. To get the amount of land we wanted, we went to a different place, but we loved Wayne. And then you're going to get a lot of young professionals because you do have access to that King of Prussia employment corridor. And it's very easy to hop on the train right there, and you're in Philly in 25 minutes. Super easy. And so understanding that a lot of competition, but then setting your home up to take advantage of these people in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, rather than selling to young 20s. You're probably not going to get a ton of young 20s people in Wayne, but you're also not going to get a ton of 50 and up people moving to Wayne. That's just, you might get more of that than maybe Devon, Berwyn, because you do have access to the town, but you're still going to see mostly, I would say, that 28 to 45 group. That's who's buying in Wayne. So let's talk about Devon now. So it's this is I would say a classic mainline corridor. It's beautiful, very strong liquidity, but it can be a little more segmented than Wayne. Wayne kind of works off of the radius from the downtown, whereas Devon, it's pockets, not necessarily centralized in any one location. So the buyers, what they're typically looking for, if they're looking at Devon, you're going to get more classic neighborhoods, you're going to get great lot quality, and you're still going to maintain that Paoli Line ecosystem, relatively easy access to roads, maybe not as easy as Wayne, but you're going to maintain more of a residential rhythm to your life rather than a town-focused rhythm to your life. So that's something that differentiates Devon and Wayne. So when buyers are looking at lots, there are a few things to expect. You're going to get more mature trees, a little more privacy maybe than Wayne, a little more of a calm neighborhood feel than Wayne. You can obviously find that in Wayne, but not as frequently. You're going to have a lot more variance by street here. It's subdivision based rather than how many can we pack into this level of radius. Then it gets a little looser outside of Wayne. There are some very key lifestyle anchors in Devon, rather. I'm not saying there aren't, but just not that one big one like Wayne. So if you're a seller in Devon, resale liquidity is best when you emphasize what Devon buyers want. They want that neighborhood feel. They want their lot to be usable, and they want a home that feels classic suburban home. So Devon buyers can be a little more selective at the higher price points because if they're looking for a home, they probably have a vision of that. Where a lot of times, especially if you're close to downtown in Wayne, they just want to be near that downtown and they'll take a lot that generally fits what they're looking for. And now let's move to Berwyn. So this is the, I would say, value and convenience sweet spot for a lot of people. I think people would consider it the best relative value among the three. And so that can increase demand at times. So you still have that strong Paoli corridor train location. You have a lot of practical convenience. You have access here to both mainline corridor and Chester County employment hubs. So your buyers are going to be largely kind of in between Devon and Wayne, but they're going to be slightly more price sensitive than Wayne, and they want a little bit more benefits than Devon, if that makes sense. So this price sensitivity should not be considered a weakness in Berwyn. It should be considered something to take advantage of. So it can increase resale liquidity because you're going to capture select groups of both Wayne and Devon buyer pools, plus people who just want Berwyn. So you have a little bit of a deeper buyer pool here than you might think going in. I would say Berwyn's probably where you're going to have to price the tightest. You're not going to get people who just want that super suburban feel and are willing to pay for like a home that perfectly fits their vision. You're also not going to get people who are going to just pay a premium for an amazing walkable town. So you're going to have to price a little bit tighter, not lower, but you're going to have to be more accurate pricing in Berwyn than you might in Devon or Wayne. But you have great resale liquidity here. It's just a little bit different operation. So obviously these towns differ a bit. They share a lot of similarities. So it's important to think of micro location as well, not just what town am I sitting in. So when you are looking to price your home, or maybe you're looking to buy and want to maximize resale liquidity, there are a few things to keep in mind. Train proximity is absolutely a premium creator. So understanding how close you are to the closest train can have a big difference. So access to Route 30, 202, 76, and the Blue Route, all of these are going to be a similar factor to train proximity. And then parking and lot usability. I think this will be the biggest premium in Wayne. There are a few homes. I know we looked at a couple that were 2 or 3 blocks off of the downtown where you actually did have some decent parking on the lot and on the street. And you could tell that was a big deal. Those houses were probably 50,000 more, probably for a number of reasons, but than a house 1 block over. So understanding that premium. And that's not just a parking thing. So let's say we're looking back at Devon again, the ability to put what you want on your land, the ability to have walkability for, let's say, pets, for kids, whatever it might be. I would also personally, I would think about how level your lot and neighborhood is. We found I know I really wanted a basketball court, so we've had a very level driveway. And now the kiddos are hitting bike riding age, and we have like one stretch that's pretty flat of neighborhood, and the rest is just up and down. And we're just envisioning our little guy just rocketing down these hills. So something to consider if that's important for you. School assignment, I talked about it. This is going to change block to block. So if you really, for some reason, want to be in Radnor, if you really, for some reason, want to be in T&E, that's something to look into because you might think, oh, we're in Wayne, we're definitely in Radnor. That's not necessarily true. Pockets of Wayne are in Radnor, pockets of Wayne are not. So understanding that is going to make a difference depending on what you're looking for. And then condition matters. So obviously there's a baseline level of demand that you're going to get just to be in these locales, but people are going to pay a premium depending on the age of the roof, the HVAC age, windows, basement moisture signals, especially for some of the older homes in these areas. This is a big issue. Grading has changed a lot over the past 3, 4, 5, 6 decades. So people understand that in the Philly suburbs, and they're going to be looking at older homes a little more discerningly than they might a newer construction. So understanding all of these lifestyle anchors, the lot location, the lot quality, the build quality, all of these things are going to factor into resale liquidity. And so it's more than just picking the right town for your resale liquidity goals or what you are looking for in a home. You have to understand what to maintain and what to prioritize in order to maximize your resale liquidity, whether you just want to be here for 5 or 10 years, or maybe this is the home that you want to stay in forever and hope your kids move into one day. So understanding what you're looking for will make you make different decisions. So let's talk about the general high level 1-sentence buyer, 1 or 2 sentence. I'll talk at you for a while. 1 or 2 sentence buyer profile for each of these towns. So Wayne is often the best fit for buyers who want a town-centered lifestyle and strong resale confidence driven by that demand. Devon is often the best fit for buyers out of these 3 who prioritize classic mainline residential feel. They want high lot quality and a quieter, more suburban, almost rural pace of life while staying in that same corridor, while having access to KOP, downtown Philly, trains, 202, 30, 76, all of this. And then Berwyn is often the best fit for buyers who want corridor access. You get both that mainline access and easy Chester County access. You'll maintain strong demand dynamics because you're sitting kind of in between, not necessarily, it depends where you are. But I mean, in terms of buyer pool, you're sitting in between Wayne and Devon, and you're staying value conscious in this price band. So final takeaways here: Wayne, Devon, Berwyn, amazing towns in the Philly suburbs, consistently have great resale liquidity for all of the reasons I just went through. But in terms of the lifestyle you want, or understanding the lifestyle that your potential buyers would like, understanding the differences between these 3 towns is the key to maximizing your specific resale liquidity. So if you have any questions about deeper dives into maybe a specific property, a specific neighborhood, what exactly buyers are going to look for depending on where you're looking or where you currently are, please feel free to throw something in the comments, reach out. I have all of my social media information, not all my personal information, thank God, included below. So please feel free, reach out. I would love to talk to you about resale liquidity. I think it is an extremely interesting part of the dynamics of the main line and of the Philly suburbs generally. Till next time, have a great one, guys.